Welcome back, Lagos. If you just joined us, you are just in time. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981 on Smooth 98.1 with Ayo Mairo Ese.
And Kayode Baker. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. And we have, of course, our very special guests and analysts in the studio this morning. We have Justin EJ. Good morning.
Morning, folks.
And you can find him at Justin EJ up on social media. Also, we have Ikemesit Effiong. Good morning.
Good morning, Kayode.
Good morning, Ikemesit. You also can find him. Good morning, Ikemesit.
Good morning.
Yeah, there we go. You also can find him at Judge Ike up on Twitter as well. And Lagos.
All right, now if you'd like to join the conversation, you can do that through WhatsApp. The number to send your messages to is 0809 444 0981. On Twitter, we're live at Smooth981 FM. Please use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 so we can easily track your messages. And on YouTube, we are streaming live. So please go onto YouTube and search for Smooth981 FM and look at what's going on. You can also send your messages through that platform as well. All right, we'll go straight to our first story this morning. And Justin, I'll start with you for this one. Yesterday, we took on the headline from the Punch newspaper, Saraki Dogara padded budget for 4 years. And this came from the leader of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, as we suspected, Saraki has come back with a rejoinder saying budget padding, Tinubu is a liar. Yesterday, he described the allegations of budget padding and deliberate budget delays leveled against him and the 8th National Assembly as careless, irresponsible, and callous. Lies concocted to smear the image of the parliament. What do you have to say about this, Justin?
Oh, well. Politics. Where does it end and where does governance begin? Yeah. So we're seeing more of the politicking. But I, in this particular instance, I think I like the way that Dr. Saraki has responded to the slurs from his former party chairman.
Would you call it slurs or accusations?
Accusations, slur, potato.
All right.
So the same thing to me. So Saraki goes into detail first of all. So you can break down his response into 2 segments.
Okay.
Segments where he uses facts, figures, and examples to demonstrate and not just verbalize his refutal of the things that him and his leadership at the National Assembly have been accused of by Mr. Tinubu. So he goes on to talk about examples of what is being referred to as budget padding falsely. So he says, for instance, that the National Assembly under his leadership in the 2018 budget insisted that 1% of the total budget, which amounted to 33 billion naira, should be allocated for universal health coverage, as provided for by an extant law, which wasn't in the initial budget draft. So they insisted that be adhered to. And he's saying, is this what Tinubu considers as budget padding? So he goes on to give several other examples. Talking about the statistical analysis of how many bills the 8th Assembly has passed. He said the only assembly that came close to the 8th Assembly was the 5th Assembly, which passed a total of 126 bills. But the National Assembly, the 8th Assembly has passed a total of about 230 something bills.
Over 200 bills.
Over 200 bills, yeah. And that out of that, only 11 were executive bills. So he goes through this systematic process of debunking the allegations from Tinubu, and then when he's done with that, he goes into the political side of it and begins his own mud fling. Talking about the fact that Mr. Tinubu should leave them, the National Assembly, out of his maneuvering for 2023 alleged political ambitions that he may have. But all that said and done, at the end of the day, this is politics, and we should leave it for the politicians. Guys, what we need from you people is governance, right? Buckle down and do the work of the National Assembly, at least until when they hand over to the new incoming assembly. Private citizens who have influence, such as Mr. Tinubu is, please do allow the elected officials of the people to do their work.
Well, he is a private citizen, but also the leader of a party, so he does have a say in it. And
He has a say in his party affairs.
well, very true. Something that a comment I would like to refer to a comment that was shared yesterday, which rightly pointed out that if indeed the National Assembly, the Senate had padded the budget, then why did the president sign it into law? We know we've seen a number of bills that have been passed on the floor, which the president has declined to assent, based on certain reasons, justifiable reasons.
As I said, it's all politics. I mean, we've discussed in this studio. We've had stories where someone is accused of an impeachable offense,
yes,
by an assembly at state level.
Yeah.
And they go through the brouhaha in the public eye, and then when the backroom horse trading is done, suddenly those impeachable offenses vanish into thin air. We all live happily ever after in the political sphere. So it's all politics.
Thank you very much, Justin. I'll go on to Ikemesit for this one. Unfortunate news from Katsina State. Thisday has this report: bandits kill 17, abduct 2 women in Katsina community. According to the report, bandits have again, so it's a repeat invasion, invaded Yarsit Center in the outskirts of Sherere community in Kankara local government area of Katsina State, killing 17 persons while dozens sustained varying degrees of injuries and numerous houses set ablaze. I think it's important to point out that the 17 persons who have been killed were reported by eyewitnesses, while the official numbers are a bit lower than this. Just talk about the story.
Yeah, as always tends to be the case when it comes to these things, the official reporting most times depresses the numbers somewhat with respect to and when compared to the eyewitness accounts. The situation in Katsina is becoming a bit concern, not really a big concern, it's becoming very concerning. And in this case, the spokesperson of the Katsina State Police Command, SP Gambo Issa, actually said that this has been an ongoing issue because there appears to be an emerging conflict between members of the civilian area and bandits, and apparently, like you rightly pointed out, this was a repeat. In an earlier confrontation, a number of bandits were killed, and this essentially was a kind of reprisal attack. In response to that, the police spokesperson also somewhat allocated responsibility for this entire state of affairs squarely with the civilian JTF, stating that they had essentially carried out an illegal search, walked into someone's property, and then killed the person just because of a mere suspicion of criminality. He highlighted the fact that that particular action was unconstitutional and illegal, and even said that even he and his colleagues as police officers were bound by the law, as it were. So there is a banditry situation going on in parts of the northwestern and north central region. You've also got issues of castle rustling. Let's not forget that over the weekend there was a situation in Kaduna, precisely, where two volunteer workers, one Nigerian and one British, unfortunately lost their lives. And so the security situation in this country, in parts of this country at least, is degenerating to a point where we really need to start having a conversation about some of the more structural drivers that are powering this rise in violence, really.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Now, just as a conclusion, the police command, Katsina State Police Command spokesman, SP Gambo Issa, said that normalcy had returned to the community despite what happened in the past few days. All right, now go on to Vanguard. Justin, I'll come back to you for this one. Oshodi, Apapa Expressway, federal government insensitive to our plight. Motorists, commuters have said. Now, I know there's some people on the road currently who are applying that road, so would understand what we're talking about, or those who apply these roads, this road quite frequently. Now, they've blamed the perennial gridlock on what they described as insensitivity of the federal and Lagos state governments to the state of the roads. Gridlocked as tankers have shut down Apapa Road as of yesterday, when the expressway was expected to be free for vehicular movement owing to the Easter break. Motorists were still trapped in traffic from Ijesha to Mile 2.
So this is where governance is required, and this is the kind of thing I was referring to earlier on. This is not rocket science, right? Keeping the roads clear, solving the problem of Oshodi Apapa is not rocket science. So why has it remained this way? If people begin to allege that the government is insensitive, I would actually agree. I can imagine the pain of people who live and work in that axis, the man hours lost to that time in traffic, the health implications of having to spend so many hours in traffic.
Yes.
I can imagine. I wish somebody would do a study on the economic loss.
And this has been going on for a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not a year plus. It's
I mean, over many years.
Over
Only
many
that
years.
in
It's
recent
been-
times.
Yeah.
I mean, the VP has visited. They have had some consultations, and they're
Exactly.
complaining that despite all this, they haven't. There's been no respite despite all the attention.
I think there was a time a promise was made that the matter was going to be resolved in a matter
So
of months.
the VP stopped over one day last year, gave a directive, ordered a task force constituted, and well, guess what? The task force has become a prime part of the problem, because the drivers and the truck people on that axis are alleging that the task force members are extorting them, right, and basically racketeering their space on the queue. Because first of all, the problem begins from bad administration inside a Apapa port, because you could do a scheduling system that doesn't require trucks to line up. You show up at the port when it's your turn. They haven't done that, so that problem begins from inside the port.
Okay.
So now, just like back in the day when getting visas was a big deal around here and people would racketeer on the lines, it's the same thing happening there. So there's a racket for who gets to be in the line. Now the task force who's meant to keep the road clear, the task force members who are meant to keep the road clear, are allegedly extorting drivers and playing games on the road. So the queue is not going anywhere. That's one part of it. The other part of it, remember when Mr. President showed up in town and all the trucks disappeared overnight?
Yes.
That tells you that the problem
To
is
campaign
not
for a
intractable.
second term, by the way. So
Yes.
I don't know if people didn't bring that up as one of their campaign promises for them to fulfill.
Well,
The irony of that.
Well, the truck showed up immediately after he left town, so
Barely a day after he left town.
When he barely did, the same day.
as he was boarding his flight, the tankers were
The
coming
same
back.
day on the
So-
drive home, I
So
saw them.
there's a few questions around this, right? Number one is, where did they take the trucks to? So where were they parked in that time? And number two, why did they return? So if it could have been solved for one night, could that not have been extended for a longer term solution?
So you know the funny and the interesting thing, a lot of the trucks, especially in this part of town, were actually pushed into the side streets,
The side
away
streets,
from
yes.
away from the
Away
main
from
roads.
the road.
So it's not like they actually left the vicinity of those
They just
areas.
drove
It was
into all the
essentially, you know what very brilliant in this part of the world, that's cosmetic measures.
Just
And
cover.
exactly, you know, it's I think that was probably the
Good thing you
public transportation equivalent of sweeping all the dirt instead of
Under
sweeping
the
them,
carpet,
you know, exactly.
Now, two measures that would solve the problem were the expansion of the relay truck terminal and then the construction of a 5,000 capacity truck terminal in the Ojo area. Now, what has happened to those two projects? Contracts have been awarded. Again, governance suffering because of politics. We all know what happened in Lagos State, how the transition from the Ambode administration is going to happen. Now, part of the cost of the project was embedded in the 800 billion naira budget that Mr. Governor Ambode had proposed, which his state assembly has not signed.
They said they would pass it on Friday according to news
Oh,
reports.
fantastic. Hallelujah. But because of that, the contractors, I understand, have demobilized from site because they got an initial mobilization. They're obviously not going to use their money to do the job.
Yeah.
So money is not coming from the government. So the contractors have demobilized. So the trailer parks are not being constructed.
Yeah.
So the people, because you see how it's a domino effect.
Yes.
It's a complete kerfuffle, like they were saying on CNN, right around here. But again, this is the people suffering because the people we elected have neglected their jobs. And
Thank you very much, Justin. We'll take some comments from WhatsApp.
This one here from Ken Wachiku from Surulere says, Tinubu did not say the assembly did not pass the bills. He accused them of padding the budgets. They are two different things. I think it was reacting to the first story earlier.
No, we didn't actually, Ken, we didn't actually say he didn't pass the bills. It's also still reacting to the fact that he mentioned that they'd been padded. What we said was when they'd been passed, sometimes the president could decline to assent to some of the bills that haven't passed. So just to clarify that.
This one from Henry Dixon says, Tinubu talking about budget padding and accusing Saraki and Dogara. Tinubu should stop playing politics and concentrate. in his party job. And MI from Makoka says the face-off between Saraki and Tinubu is not unconnected with the battle of the Iron Throne and of the Ninth Assembly. In the budget, if the budget was padded, was there silence until now? Saraki came bearing receipts though. They would need to get a room. All right, keep those messages coming in at 0809-444-0981.
No running away from Game of Thrones.
No. When I saw it initially, I thought it was a joke. Then when I continued reading, I saw that it was actually related. Thank you very much. All right, let's go on to this one. We have good news. We have depreciated Boko Haram's efficacy, says the Nigerian government. Justin, don't give me that look. Ikemesit, I'll come to you for this story. Premium Times is reporting, and
my commentary will be worse than his look. I hope you're ready.
Please, what look are you people talking about?
All right, Ikemesit, if they want to find out, they should go to YouTube. We're streaming live. They can see the look live and direct. Ikemesit, please go on.
So, to the extent that in terms of the share mechanics and the technicalities of it all, right? Have we made significant strides in dealing with Boko Haram?
Yeah.
Yes, but in the larger scheme of things, right? This headline and essentially Lai Mohammed's pontification about the government's track record when it comes to handling Boko Haram, right, is somewhat misleading. Let's start with the fact that, and I don't need to run through the chorus of what the government has actually done. You can go read the story on Premium Times.
You can, but
right?
let me just so just for sake of argument, before you respond to the government, this is what he has pointed out. Okay, as I said before you respond. So he said pre-2015 they could any city in Nigeria, and remember the attacks in United Nations HQ, the police headquarters wasn't spared. 2013 to 2014 they were active in at least 10 states of the federation. So he's talking about the fact that not that they've been defeated completely, but that their activities have been streamlined to a particular area rather than them attacking all around.
Yeah, I mean that much is clear. I mean the headline clearly says depreciated, so we understand the distinction. Yeah, but the point is, when you think about the fact that now Boko Haram is essentially splintered into 3 groups. It's affiliated to IS. There are more significant plugins with foreign fighters in the wider Sahel region, and there might be tacit evidence that there might be emerging of the conflict in the Northeast with some of the other security situations you find in other parts of the country. We just dealt with one in Katsina. We had an issue in the weekend in Katsina. I'm not by any means saying they are related in a direct sense, but the point is, when you're talking about the fact the government is Lai Mohammed essentially went on national television to state we are doing something with respect to security, and this is the evidence. But the point is, we're still seeing other fissures and pockets of insecurity in other parts of the country.
So are you saying that
the wider sense of the story, in that we are doing our best to protect the lives of Nigerians, I think can be challenged significantly. That's my point, and that's me,
That's fine.
Eloquently summarizing Justin's look from earlier.
Thank you very much
for that one. Let's get to our next story. This one here comes from the Punch newspaper. It says exam malpractices. JAMB probes candidates' credentials from 2009 to 2019, and essentially what they're saying is that persons that cheated the system to pass the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, that's UTME, and if they've graduated or even served, they might be arrested and also they will be arrested rather and have their certificates withdrawn. Justin, this story comes to you. What are your thoughts?
All the mercenaries, job don't knock. So we all know, I mean, those of us of a certain age know what the word mercenary means from back in school, yeah? There were people whose job it was to...
We know intellectually.
Intellectually. This is what we do. So, I'm happy about this one. And it's a testament to how, when you work smart, when you employ the advantage that technology confers, we can actually, at this point, I have to give credit to former President Jonathan, at least on one point, right? He did say that one of the best ways to fight corruption is using technology.
Okay.
And that's what JAMB is successfully doing. So using biometric information and data matching, they've been able to find out that people, they've finally found out what we have all known all the years, that people are writing exams for people and basically committing exam malpractice. So this is a good one. And it's a very interesting story. Everyone should go and read it. And they went into detail about how it is done, how Ikemesit, as a very brilliant chap, would register as kind of
Not this Ikemesit,
not this
though.
Ikemesit
Just
now.
an example.
It's just a placeholder.
Before Lagos we
Start looking for you.
start
No,
speculating
don't worry,
as to how old I am.
the biometrics are here, and
Okay.
they will know that we didn't do anything.
That's
wrong.
reassuring.
Exactly. So JAMB has actually started arresting people. So be afraid if you've been committing exam malpractice. They have found one individual who has already been arrested, who registered 64 times to write the exams for 64 different people. Okay, now this is an industry that they have just brought down. It is a whole industry around this thing where people go and write exams for other people. And the good thing is, if they keep this up, they will be able to sanitize that part of our educational infrastructure at the very least. And I'm happy about that. And for those people who will say it's only in Nigeria that these kind of things happen, excuse me. In that country you people like to use as example, some Ivy League universities were just
United
exposed.
States.
There's an admission racket.
Yeah,
also.
going on.
So they
So
also
we're all
said that
inside
they're-
this thing.
They said
Yeah.
they're also publishing names of working class people. That's if these people are already working class, names will also be published as
So
well.
they're doing it retroactively. Kade, thank you for reminding me about that. So if you did it 10 years ago, Ayo, why are you?
I'm not shaking. No. I'm just raising my hand on behalf of people listening.
So if you did it 10 years ago, JAMB is going back to, they're starting this from dating back to 2009. I think that's when they started the biometric
Yeah.
examination.
He had killed by then.
This gives a
Right?
whole
Yeah.
new
So,
definition.
she has killed.
The
I'm telling
jam has jammed you.
Exactly.
Well,
so if you're working
defines that.
now and they go, but let's assume you have a plum job at one of those big
Your fancy
companies
places.
now, one of the
Yes.
fancy companies, in VI and Banana Island, and they go back and find out that the person who wrote your JAMB was
Yeah.
not you.
Okay.
Well, let's just say I hope you're in good terms with your village people.
All right, thank you very much for that one. We see messages pouring in. We're going to get to them just in a little bit, but let's get to our next story. And this one comes to you, Ikemesit. It's from the Guardian newspaper. It says, okay. Anyways, the story says, road users lament extortion on Lagos-Ibadan expressway. And it comes to you, Justin. Okay. And Ikemesit, so both of you can just share the story. The agony users of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway are subjected to continued unabated at the weekend, while basically increased influx of road users during Easter holiday and activities, religious centers. So essentially, what the story said is that there's been a lot of extortion on that road, basically, and I don't know.
There's always been, right?
You see, these things happen in broad daylight, right? And so you're very soon you're going to hear a counter argument from the head of the agency that's been accused here. Oh, there's nothing like that. We're professional, blah 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 blah. Excuse me. There's something called internal affairs management. If people are accusing your staff as a security agency of extorting road users, we don't need to argue about it. Set up a mystery shopping process. People need to go out there, pretend to be ordinary road users, and observe. It happens every day in broad daylight. You wouldn't need to spend 24 hours to catch your officers in the act. So, I mean, this is an open and short conversation. There's no argument here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I suppose why this was somewhat newsworthy is just the fact that the story actually states that security officials attached to the construction company that is working on that road, right, had
And they mentioned the
originally,
name,
mentioned the name of the company, they had barricaded a particular section of the road
Mention
that
their
had been
name now.
newly
Is RCC.
that has been newly constructed, right?
Yeah.
And they were essentially charging people for using that newly constructed section of the road. Ordinarily, what would have happened would have been, while they are working on the other side of the road, everyone has to, traffic gets directed through the porthole and still undone side of the road. But because this other section had been newly completed but hadn't been commissioned yet, security officials use the opportunity to help themselves to a little Easter package.
All right, thank you very much for that one.
Just a few comments here from WhatsApp. Isaac Omikeja says the Apapa Road issue is not going to resolve until another port is built somewhere else in this country, and that that focus is on Akwa Ibom. I know the governor is currently working to build a port in that state. And Oluyomi at Yomsi on Twitter says the Follow Lask and federal government have been extremely insensitive to the state of the Apapa Oshodi Expressway. Have you been there in recent times? The route has become a den of robbers. A lot of people have lost their lives in the 5-year-long chaos.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get into our next story. This one comes to you, Ikemesit. It talks about the ICPC accusing banks of aiding criminals, and it's from the Punch newspaper. Now, the story reads, the chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, that's Professor Bolaji Oshinoye, has lamented the role of some financial institutions in financial crimes, saying some of them have opened accounts for criminals and provided services that helped criminal acts.
I mean, yeah, so I have a problem with the way this statement was worded, and also with the larger argument that the chairman of the ICPC was making. It almost makes it sound as if he's trying to imply that banks willingly do these things or are known participants in these things, unless there have been facts in specific cases that the ICPC is trying where this has been an issue, to come out and say that generally some financial institutions, there's a particular section of the story where he said some financial institutions, this is a direct quote, condone unethical conducts by opening accounts for criminals and how they use innuendos to make suggestions of criminalities to lure customers. It's almost as if he's saying that some financial institutions are essentially using criminality as part of their pitch. As part of their business, as part of their business proposition. I find that very hard to believe.
Okay, so you're saying that if there is evidence, names should be published, names of these institutions should be published.
If there is evidence, right, take them to court. By virtue of the fact that they will be in court, which is an open and a public venue, we will become apprised of the facts of the case. It's that simple,
listen, guys,
right?
That's a very uninformed position, a very pedestrian position that he has taken. As someone who was trained in that industry, I can tell you for free that without exonerating anybody who is practicing malpractice, because in any industry everywhere you will find people who will circumvent laid down rules and procedures. Banking in Nigeria is the most regulated sphere of enterprise in this country. Even when you compare it to international standards, we are highly regulated, or the industry is highly regulated. Now, when you make statements like this, you cast a very wide net, right? There are requirements laid down by the regulator of banking and financial services for how accounts are opened, who is qualified to open what account, what information they must provide. Banks are required to comply with that. And to the larger extent, they do, except when there is a rogue actor in play, not an institutional actor.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, in running your accounts in the bank, there are reporting requirements that the regulator has put in place. In other words, there are things you do in your account. If you pass a certain threshold of deposit, or there's something called a suspicious activity report or a suspicious transaction report that banks are required to send daily.
So you're saying they're well regulated for him not to have made
you
such
don't
a
make this
statement.
kind of
you don't.
head of ICPC. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We just had to round off with this comment as our time is far spent. Bukola says, good morning. Rumors have it that the Northeast is a mining ground for gold and other mineral resources. The Boko Haram headsmen stories are mere cover for the illegal mining going on there. So keyword there, rumor. But thanks, Bukola, for your comment. Ike says, if the said agency doesn't extort, how would they have had a good Easter? Really, Ike? All right.
And this one says, JAMB's responsibility is to conduct exams, a task that still leaves much to be desired. For instance, results of its 2019 CBTS are still unavailable over 1 week, and this is from Emmanuel.
Yeah, and computer-based testing, and the reason why it's there is that the results
Emmanuel,
should come out
pretty
quicker.
much automatically.
I just hope you are not,
All right, last one here from our YouTube family. Adetubo Sofemi says Tinubu is a rabble rouser. Adetubo, so what has he done to smoothing executive legislation work? He should wait till the APC comes in during the 9th Assembly and becomes the Senate President. Then we will see the difference in quote. Thank you all for your messages on YouTube, on Twitter, on WhatsApp. We're really grateful for being engaged, for you being engaged. But a big thanks to our analysts this morning. We've had with us Ikemesit at George Ike.
Pleasure.
And of course, Justin at Justin EJ on Twitter.
Have a great week, guys.
Good morning, ladies.
What is it? Time ran out now. Yeah.
Sorry, the last Notre Dame story.
We're
So I thought you were going to take.
we're busy getting